que você ama em uma universidade? Aprender na prática com grandes empresas? Conviver com pessoas que mudam o mundo? Ou estudar em uma estrutura com padrão internacional? Na AMB Morumbi, tudo isso acontece. Venha descobrir por que milhares de alunos amam estudar aqui. Acesse amb.br e faça sua matrícula. Amo é AMB Morumbi. Aqui tudo acontece.
Esse podcast é um oferecimento de Samsung Galaxy AI. E sabe o que mais ele te oferece? Que tal um intérprete em tempo real na palma das suas mãos para você nunca mais ter problemas em viagens ou reuniões? E falando em viagens, não precisa mais ficar com aquela foto torta. Com a câmera aprimorada, você deixa sua foto genial sem ter que baixar outros apps. Tem tanta coisa que o Samsung Galaxy AI pode fazer por você. Clica aí no banner para descobrir o que. Galaxy AI, a inteligência artificial nas suas mãos.
Stuffed into a giant Stay Fresh pouch. For Big League flavor and Big League bubbles, it's Big League Chew. You're in the big leagues when you're in the Big League Chew.
All right. Welcome back. MisFitNation. If you're a veteran, you're struggling or feel like you're leading a path towards the darkness, stop and think about those who are around you. Think about how they truly value you, how they will miss you. You are not alone. You need to talk to someone. Someone will listen to you. If you feel like you will be a burden to someone or you're embarrassed to talk to your inner circle, your family or friends, pick up that phone, call the hotline at 988 and take option 1. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, thanks for joining us. Please subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at _MisFitNation. It's _MisFitNation. Subscribe, click the bell. This will keep you up to date with our latest news, episodes, and of course, the stories of our guests. Speaking of which, our next guest co-founded one of the most awarded ad agencies on Madison Ave. Selected one of Mad Ave's 12 best by New York Ad Club. He was invited to write for Ad Week and speak at venues like the World Business Academy and the Yale Entrepreneur Institute. And for his breakthrough public service work, he was honored at the White House. So without further ado, let's welcome John Follis to the MisFitNation. Welcome, John.
How you doing?
Great to have you here, and I'm glad that we're able to link in, even though we're probably about 4 inches away on the map, but we're right here next to each other here on this beautiful StreamYard. So thanks for doing this for us.
Oh, my pleasure.
John, if you don't mind, if you want to give a little more beef to your bio than what I just did, go as far back as you want to go and bring us to where we are today.
Well, sure. I was very fortunate to have a successful career in advertising. I'm at the point now where I'm kind of doing whatever I want to do. So it's nice to be on a podcast and do some reflection and maybe even share something that might give other people some hope or inspiration, because to get to the point to achieve the things that you just described in that introduction was not easy. One thing you did not mention in that introduction was that the first advertising course that I took in college, after deciding to go into advertising as a major, I did so poorly in the class that I was told by the instructor to drop the class or he would basically flunk me.
Wow.
Which is not the thing you want to hear when a month after you've just decided that advertising is going to be your future career. And the first course you take, you do so poorly in it that the instructor, who is not just some flunky advertising instructor, but an actual advertising guy from New York City who is teaching the class, tells you suck. It's hard not to take that seriously. So that was the first harsh rejection I got, but there would be more to come very quickly after that, because I think it was my second job in the business, I got fired. Third job, I did okay. The fourth job, I got fired. The fifth job, I got fired. And the sixth job, I got fired.
Wow.
So I got fired four times in the first 8 years in the business, which is not a very auspicious start to ultimately achieve the things you just mentioned in that introduction. And I remember very clearly, Rich, after being fired that fourth time, sitting at night in my one-bedroom New York City apartment, trying to figure out what I should do for the future of my career and whether or not I should still consider advertising as a career I should pursue. And I had talked to a number of recruiters trying to get advice about getting interviewed at different agencies. And I got to the point where even the recruiters were not that interested in talking to me. Because once you've gotten fired a couple of times, never mind 4 times, they tend to be a little bit cooler when they're talking to you, because I think they look at you as tainted property, right? And so I found myself with not a whole lot of choices. I had to get work. I was paying New York City rent. So if you remember, if you're old enough to remember this thing called the phone book, I pulled out a phone book and started looking at the advertising agencies in New York. And the next day I started with the A's and picking up the phone and cold calling the agencies in New York City. And I started at 9 o'clock in the morning and finished about 6 o'clock at night and kept a tally of all the calls I made. And at the end of the day, I realized I had made 106 phone calls that day and managed to get myself out of that 106 phone calls, 103 rejections, which meant I got 3 meetings. And that was what seemed like the low point in my career, ended up being the turning point in my career, because about 5 years later from that point, I had my name first on the door of one of the most award-winning agencies in New York City, and was selected by the Advertising Club of New York as one of the 12 best advertising guys, as you mentioned in the intro. And it was right around that time I got a letter in the mail with a return address being the White House, which I thought was a pretty clever promotion gimmick that someone was trying to do with me, until I opened it up and saw the embossed gold lettering and realized it was an actual invitation from the First Lady, who at that time was Barbara Bush. This was when George Bush the First was president. And it was referencing a public service TV campaign that our agency did that I had spearheaded, that dealt with the issue of child abuse, that was running on national TV. And this was about probably a month or 2 after the campaign finished, that I received this invitation. And it was an invitation to a White House reception acknowledging me and a few other people from around the country for doing something that apparently people at the White House thought was important enough to be acknowledged at this White House reception. So again, that was about 5 years, which isn't a very long time, after finding myself alone at night in that apartment after being fired the 4th time and making 106 phone calls, going through the phone book because I was so desperate to try to get a job interview.
Wow. And we talk about resilience on this show a lot, and how many times you get up is what you should be judged by in life. It's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up. You got fired 4 times in 8 years. You're paying New York rent, and if anyone doesn't understand what New York rent is, take normal rent and times it by 10 to 20 for a studio apartment, maybe even by 100, and then you might be in the ballpark for a studio apartment in New York. And that depends on where it is and what the view from it is at that point.
Right.
Because you pay more for view. And then cold calling 106 people, 106 agencies, getting pushed away by 103, but getting three actual callbacks or a chance to get in the door, and then
Right.
working your tail off for 5 years after that to a higher point. And that's outstanding. That's resilience right there.
Yep. Yeah, but you talk, your show is labeled MisFitNation, so I have to tell you, I when you get fired once, you start scratching your head, and you get fired a second time, and after 4 times, you really do start believing maybe you are a misfit for the career that you've chosen, especially when your first advertising instructor tells you chose the wrong career, back in college. So I was, I definitely qualify as someone who is probably a good fit for this podcast, because I certainly did feel like a misfit for the first 7 years of my career, 8 years.
Definitely. And the path that the road you were climbing, it's like a roller coaster, in, out, in one agency, out. And it's like they had these check marks to either keep you or leave, or get you out of there as quick as possible so you wouldn't move up. And I think a lot of agencies at that time would do that to people if they were perceived as sort of a threat, or they had creativity on there. They would push you aside and try to do anything they can to get rid of you. And I think kind of that's what happened to you.
Well,
based on where you wound up.
That's really interesting. That's a very insightful comment. I don't know how you thought about that, but I mean, I don't mean to sound arrogant by agreeing with you on that, but that's a very keen insight. I'm surprised you would even suggest, because I do believe that maybe not in all 4 of those cases, but certainly in 1 or 2 of them. Listen, the advertising business is kind of like Survivor, that TV show Survivor. And oftentimes the creative director at the agency will have 2, sometimes 3 teams competing against each other on the same assignment. And if someone could do something to get you out of the way, stabbing you in the back is not out of the question if they get a good shot at it, right? So I did not have a skill for office politics, and you cannot survive in that environment, no matter how talented you are, if you don't also have an acumen for that political chess game that goes on in that situation.
Definitely, you have to be able, in order to survive, like you said, you have to be able to play both sides of the fence, be the hard worker, and also be able to play the political game in the office. The office political game is there's a lot more knife fighting than it is at the higher level of politics, but the office political game, you can get killed or voted off the island a lot quicker.
That's true. Where did you get the insight to make that comment? Because your background is a military, so.
Prior to that, I studied marketing right there in New York City at Berkeley School. And
are you kidding me?
No. And then at St. Peter's College across the river. So I kind of knew a little bit about that avenue of business. And I kind of steered away from it and went in the military.
So you lived and studied in New York City?
I lived in Jersey City and trained over every day. I took the PATH train over.
No kidding. What year was that?
88 to 89.
And what school did you go to?
Berkeley on East 43rd Street.
Not familiar with that.
It's right down the block from the library, the New York City Library.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you studied marketing.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. So you know what New York is like.
Oh yeah. I grew up right across the river my whole, and 23 years of my life were in Jersey. So I'd go over all the time.
Oh, I thought you were a Tennessee guy or a Kentucky guy.
That's where I am now. Yes. I've retired here.
Okay. All right. So you're a city guy, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
It lives in the country now.
Interesting. All right. Well, so you have a taste of the big city.
Yes, sir. We go up all the time to visit my dad still. So we still go up there and visit and run away real quick. So with all the, I guess, all the setbacks or getting fired and stuff, you had to have some intestinal fortitude, like I said earlier about resilience. That come from your family background, or it was just you figuring out along the way to just, I got to be the tougher one and keep moving forward?
Yeah, I was fortunate, Rich, in that my dad was a big supporter of mine, and he was in his own business. He was in the insurance business, and either because of that or despite that, he always was my champion. So, listen, when I flunked my first advertising class and he was paying the bill for, tuition at Syracuse University, he could have said, what the F is going on? But, he knew that I was a hard worker and a dedicated, committed student and, wasn't screwing around. So if it didn't work out in that class, I think he trusted the fact that it wasn't because I was a screw up. And he said, well, just, figure out what you want to do and try it again with, whatever. He was just always very supportive and had always been throughout my career and throughout all the challenges I faced during my career. And you can't put a price on that, when you have someone like a father who is can be a sounding board when you need someone to listen to you.
And also that always definitely helps. My dad's always been like that for us, all of us in our family. He always looked at the good side of things. He knew that you'd have setbacks in life, but he always told you to find the good and look and keep leaning forward and find the light. And that's where we all kind of got our path from our dad as well.
Sure.
And that, I'm sure your dad helped you out along the way, and that made you what you are now. And when you got that success, did you feel like, oh, the weight's off my shoulders now, and I can yell off the top of the Empire State Building?
The irony of it is that I started out after getting fired. I started out doing smaller projects for smaller agencies, doing freelance work. So I really wasn't there long enough to be fired. You come in, you kind of you're a hired gun. It could be 2 days, 2 weeks, or 2 months. But they have you there because you're solving a problem. And if you do a good job, they keep you longer. So it's much less about the personalities than your abilities. And as a result of having some success with that, I got a call out of the blue from a very, very aggressive Manhattan born and bred business guy. His expertise was business development. He was an agency guy, but he was referred to me. He had seen some of the work that I had done, and he decided he wanted to meet me to talk about possible collaboration. And 20 minutes after meeting him for a beer, he suggested that we should start an agency together, which on one hand was kind of flattering. On the other hand, it was a little bit bizarre that I had only known this guy for 20 minutes. And he seemed convinced that we should start an agency. And we ended up doing that. The problem was I could never lower my guard with him, because very early on, he did a few things that gave me good reason not to trust him. And I was very hesitant to go into business with him but we picked up a pretty big account that really enabled us to officially put up a mantle and officially open up as an agency. But throughout that whole partnership, I thought I was kind of out of the woods when I was no longer working in that political environment with those big agencies. But to have a business partner that you can't really totally trust and you don't really feel has your back or your best interest in mind kept me awake at night. So the irony was that despite all the kudos I was receiving now as having my name first on the door, this hot new creative award-winning ad agency, I could never relax. I could never feel the way you asked me if I felt, that I could just feel like I had succeeded, because I always felt that there was a ticking time bomb going on in our agency, and at some point it might explode, and how would I deal with that? So it did explode at a certain point. I finally had to hire an attorney because he was breaching our contract. He didn't want to discuss it. The last thing I wanted to do was get attorneys involved. And I kept suggesting that we talk about it over a beer. But when someone doesn't want to sit down with you and talk about things like that over a beer, or feel like they have to reckon with you, I think he never thought I had the balls or the what can I say, the savvy maybe to find a really kick-ass attorney that would kind of call him out. And I hated to do it. I really hated to do it. But I met with the attorney. I needed some advice. That was my initial reason to meet with the attorney, just to get some perspective, to know what was going on, because I felt he was breaching our contract, and he didn't want to do anything about it. So the attorney finally said, well, you have a choice. You can send him a letter from me, or CC to me, and tell him that he's breaching the contract, and call him out on it. And unfortunately, that ended that relationship. Well, unfortunately, or not, I should say, because like most things in life, some things don't last forever, and they run their course, and they're good for a while, and I have no regrets. It was because of that partnership that I achieved an enormous amount of success. He was an amazing new business guy. So I have absolutely no regrets of being in that partnership with him, because it was because of that we were so successful. But as I suspected early on, at some point that was going to end. And, I just wish it didn't have to cost $90,000 in legal fees in 1991.
Wow.
Because was it 91? No, it was 93. So that $90,000 in 93 would probably be 150 right now in today's dollars. And it was unfortunate, it was unfortunate because it didn't need to be that way. But, that's why they're attorneys, I guess.
Definitely. And did you maintain the business after, or did you go off on your own at that point?
No. I was kind of the odd man out. There was another creative director, and clearly they were a better match. It was kind of funny because one of my last conversations was with the new creative director that I ended up helping to bring in, because he was an amazingly talented guy. And I sat down with him, and right before I left, I asked him if he trusted our business partner, my soon-to-be ex-business partner. And he looked at me and he said a couple of things I'll never forget. One thing he said, I don't trust anyone, but I trust him less.
Oh, wow.
than anyone. So, I mean, that's not exactly correct English, but I knew what he meant. I don't trust anyone, but I trust him less. And then the second thing he said to me was, he said, do you think he's taking money out of the business, on the side? And the guy had only been working with us a relatively short time, yet he felt uncomfortable enough about this guy to ask me my opinion about that, whether or not he thought this guy was skimming money out of the business. To which I replied, well, I have no reason to believe that. Why do you ask? And his response, again, I still can't believe what he said. He said, well, I don't know if he is either, but it wouldn't surprise me if he is. And if he's taking 10% more, we're supposed to be 50-50. When you leave, it's going to be 50-50 between me and him. And if he's taking it an extra 10%, which wouldn't surprise me, he said, I could live with that.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, these guys are definitely meant for one another, because if I suspected that he was taking $1 more than me, I would have a problem with that. If our agreement was 50-50 and he was taking 51% out of the money, that would be a problem for me, because that's not what we agreed to. And yet this guy was willing to take 40% or 45% to this guy's 55%. He felt that he could live with that. So I couldn't believe that he would be, first of all, that he was, he also felt distrustful with this guy, but was willing to go into business with someone that he felt could possibly be taking, 10% more out of business than he should be getting. So I said, good luck. Wow.
That's craziness.
And they're still together. So obviously, listen, some people could live in a marriage where the partner's screwing around and they're okay with it,
That's true. It's a true statement. So we have a lot of veterans that listen to this show, and a lot of first responders and such that want to start businesses or need help getting their business out there. What are some tips that you would give them to get their ad out there to the masses?
To get their what out to the masses?
Their brand. Like, how would they advertise it to the masses now?
Well, that all depends what their business is. I mean, the short answer is you got to use everything that's free and available. Start there. But, everyone and their grandmother is promoting something on social media. So, and I mean it, there's so many podcasts that have spawned up because of the pandemic. There's probably more grandparents on doing podcasts and YouTube channels than ever before. So I'm not joking about that. It's very difficult for someone who's a entrepreneur, business owner, who doesn't have the training and experience in marketing to be really good at marketing their own business. It's just difficult. When you run a business, you have to find people to help run your business. You need a bookkeeper, right? Unless you have an accounting degree, you shouldn't be doing your books. You should hire a bookkeeper or an accountant. You should also, if you're in any kind of business, you should have some kind of a legal source to count on. If you know a little bit of law, that's great, but you're not, if you're going to be signing contracts or doing thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in business, you have to know how to protect yourself legally. So you need to have a legal resource that you can trust. Well, the same is true with marketing. It's kind of funny. Simply because everyone is familiar with marketing, everyone knows what marketing is in essence, suddenly everyone thinks that they're qualified to do it well. And very, very few business owners, it's a very, as simple as it may seem in essence, there's so many nooks and crannies and wrinkles of marketing. And everyone is looking for the silver bullet. They all want to know, well, what should I do? The best thing they could do is find someone who's brilliant and pay them well to help you. That's really one of the best things. And the story I like to tell, Rich, is, when you think of the most successful company in the world, certainly one of them is Apple. And I'm a big fan of Apple. I own stock in Apple. I'm a big Steve Jobs fan, so I know a lot about it. And if anyone knows anything about Steve Jobs, and even if they know a fair amount of about Steve Jobs, they may not know that as brilliant as he is as being the marketing guy behind Apple, when he started his company with Steve Wozniak and officially opened their business in 1976, he really didn't know much about marketing. And he realized that. He was smart enough when he started his business to believe that he had a product that people really wanted and something he could grow and be successful. But he also realized that he didn't have the marketing knowledge and skill and experience that was really required to grow his business. So he looked around and he found the person that he thought was the smartest marketing person to help him, and hired a guy named Regis McKenna in 1976, who was basically an advertising guy, but also did marketing consulting on the side, and hired Regis to basically create the marketing foundation for Apple. And I think they worked together for 7 or 8 years. Regis and his team were the ones that created the Apple logo and did all that foundational branding for Apple that really helped Apple become the amazing business, marketing-driven business that it is today. So I think there's no better case study than referring to Steve Jobs when he was 21 years old, right? There wasn't a lot of money. I think they had some initial investment in Apple, but it was a startup. And he just realized that if he was going to do it right, he really had to find the best marketing person and invest in them to create the foundation to build this company, because he knew that as great a product as he felt he had, he also was smart enough to know that if he didn't really do the marketing really, really well, it wouldn't matter how great his product was because no one would know about it.
Tem momento na carreira que precisamos dar passo além. É hora de fazer uma pós-graduação. Só que muitas vezes o custo pesa no bolso, inviabilizando tudo. Com a pós-graduação do Senac, você não tem esse problema. Cursos com até 50% de desconto e muito mais tempo para pagar. TCC opcional, modelo flexível com aulas presenciais e online e alguns cursos com apenas 12 meses de duração. Não tem mais desculpa, hein? Saiba mais em sp.senac.br/pós-graduação.
Definitely, and I've been around the world and see his products everywhere, every corner of the world I've been in. So I know his idea back when he was just a young guy at 21 years old to get someone else to do the work and design that for him. It worked, and the whole world knows what Apple is now, and that's a testament to that effort right there. So that's great advice right there.
So I know a lot of business owners say, well, I don't have the money. And, maybe you can hire someone just for, a couple of hours. I mean, one of the things that I started that I want to mention for your listeners out there, you said, I'm impressed by the fact that you've been podcasting since 2010, right?
No, the MisFitNation's been around since 2010. The podcast since 2020.
Okay, but you started podcasting in 2010, right?
2020.
Oh, 2020. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Where did I read 2010?
That's when the Misfits came together.
Oh, when the Misfits came together. Okay, I thought you started podcasting. The reason I mentioned that is because I always paid attention to the evolving media landscape, and I started podcasting in 2006. Wow. I started the marketing show with John Follis because I just thought it was a really cool thing to do. And I did it for 7 years. And one of the other things I did right around that time, actually a couple of years earlier in 2004, when Skype became a thing. For your listeners who may not know, Skype preceded Zoom. It was the same idea, online connection. I started a online marketing consulting model called Follis Marketing Therapy. And I've been doing it ever since 2004, where I have one-on-one conversations like this with business owners. And many, many other people do the same thing. It's not a new concept. Back in 2004, it was a relatively new concept because Skype was pretty new at the time as well. But I did it because I just felt there were so many business owners, new business owners and entrepreneurs, and even people who have been in business for a number of years who really desperately needed some marketing help. And I wanted to be able to offer that to them. So my point is that even if you can hire someone just for a couple of hours or a few hours of their time, just to get things on the right track with your business, if you find someone that you feel you can trust, it's going to be a good investment in your business.
That's sound advice. Both parts are sound advice, and I hope the Misfit Nation takes heed to that advice as they go out in their ventures to open their own businesses and try to become worldwide successes, kind of like Steve Jobs did with Apple. One more thing, John, how does someone get in contact with you now if they want to just pick your brain?
So I have a website that went up in 1996. I just gave it a facelift about a month ago to make sure it works good on mobile devices. And on that website, you can see all the information about the marketing therapy consulting program that I just mentioned. And also a company I started in 2013 called Big Idea Video, which is kick-ass marketing videos, short format, high concept, creative videos that capture people's attention. And the website is Follis, my last name, Follis Inc. Inc.com. So if they go to Follis, which is FOLLIS as in Sam, INC, follisinc.com, that's where they could see all that information.
Awesome. Thanks, John, again for taking some of your time to share your story with the Misfit Nation.
Thank you, Rich. Pleasure.
All right. Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com to catch up on all our episodes and also get some of that Misfit Nation gear I know you want. As always, stay humble, be hungry, and keep hustling because we are Fit Nation.